Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Fundamentals of Reviews webinar session. This is the fourth in a series of 5 platform basics webinars that we've been hosting. So if you haven't yet had the chance to attend or register for the other sessions yet, I highly recommend doing so that you can get the most out of the series as a whole. I also have Hema Patel, a member of our training and education team, on with me today. She's going to be helping me launch some polls as we move through our training today and then answering questions later during our Q&A session. Speaking of questions, if you have any questions as we move through today's training, feel free to drop those in the Zoom Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we can answer them as we go. You can also hold your questions until the Q&A part of the session, whatever you're most comfortable with. And if you want to follow along in your Yext build, you're more than welcome just to follow along with the different features that I'm going to be demonstrating for you today. And then I'm also going to go ahead, before we go any further in our webinar, I'm going to have Hema add the link for registration for additional sessions in our chat so that you can have that at your disposal as you need if you want to sign up for additional sessions down the road. So just a quick introduction here. My name's Alyssa. I'm a member of the Yext training and education team here at Yext, and I'm based in Texas. So I'm excited to spend some time with you today and help you get familiar with what Yext Reviews can do for you and some basics that you can get started with to understand Yext Reviews and get the most out of it. So let's talk about what we're going to be doing today. We have 3 key objectives that I'm hoping everyone in this session today, by the end of our session and our time together, will feel good about. So the first one is to be able to describe what information can be tracked with Yext Reviews. This just means to understand the data and insights that are available to monitor your online reputation using Yext Reviews. Second, respond to reviews in the Yext platform using generative AI response. We'll learn about 3 different methods of review response in the Yext platform. This AI response, the generative AI response option, is one of my favorites, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. And then third, to understand and be able to use sentiment analysis to understand keyword performance. So basically, this is just how you can analyze customer feedback and identify trends to improve your strategy. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's take a broader look at reviews as a whole. This information comes from 99firms.com, and it's essentially just a review on how folks, consumers particularly, are using reviews. So just a quick rundown here. 9 out of 10 customers read online reviews before spending money. So I'd say we're all in pretty good company here. 47% of customers post reviews each month after visiting a business. Consumers claim that they're ready to spend 31% more on a product if it has excellent reviews. I actually had a personal experience with this one not that long ago. I was looking to buy a sleep mask on Amazon, and I ended up spending a little bit more than I planned to because I wanted one that had really, really good reviews, and a lot of them. So I definitely understand where that one's coming from. 94% of customers avoid a business due to negative reviews. And I'm not throwing this one out here to make you worried or scared or uncomfortable interacting with negative reviews. In fact, later in this training, we're going to be talking about how you can interact with reviews and treat them as an opportunity to engage with customers. And we'll get back to that in a little bit. And then finally, we have 63% of customers that never hear back from a brand after leaving a review. Not a great feeling. If you're a customer who's left a review for another business before, whether good or bad, everyone likes to feel heard and that their feedback is acknowledged and helpful. So just some helpful statistics to keep in mind as we continue talking about the importance of reviews. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the benefits that Yext Reviews can provide to your brand, to your business. First is the impact on search visibility. Reviews are not just about customer perception, they're also directly impacting how visible your business is online. So it's a direct impact on how people find you and how many people can find you. Second is building consumer trust. As we have talked about briefly with our poll and then looking at those statistics, in today's customer journey, trust is everything. Before visiting any location or making a purchase, most customers read reviews to validate their decisions. Third is analyzing reviews for operational insights. Reviews aren't just about reputation, they're also a powerful source of business intelligence. And we'll get a keen look at that later as we talk about sentiment analysis. And then finally, driving revenue growth. Improving your review strategy not only boosts your reputation, it also helps you have influence on customer decisions every step of their journey. So, in short, to sum all of this up, reviews are more than just people's opinions. They're a key driver of revenue and change for your business. All right, so let's take a moment to get on the same page about some key definitions here. What is a review? A review is an organic, customer written summary and rating of their experience with your brand, published either on third party publishers or your own website. In today's digital world, as we've already established, reviews play a critical role in shaping brand perception and influencing purchasing decisions. We live in a world where reviews count, and managing them effectively has become an essential part of any good business strategy. So, now let's talk about the different types of reviews that you might come across or encounter. First, you have first party versus third party reviews. First party reviews are collected directly by your business, for example, on your website or your app if you have one. You own the content and you can choose where it gets displayed. Third-party reviews, on the other hand, are left on third-party platforms like Google, Facebook, TripAdvisor, Trustpilot, Yelp, etc. You don't own that content, but you can monitor and respond where supported. Then you have three different types of reviews. You have location, brand, and product reviews. Location reviews are going to be tied to a physical place, like a restaurant franchise, a bank branch, an ATM, etc. Brand reviews reflect sentiment toward the company overall, for example, reviewing an entire restaurant chain. And then you have product reviews, which are focused on an individual product. For example, if you were to leave a review on a jacket that you purchased from a specific brand, that would be a product review because you're directly reviewing that one product that they sell. And then finally, you have organic versus generated reviews. Organic reviews, customers leave on their own without any kind of prompting or solicitation from the business or from you. Generated reviews are collected from customers through invitations, and those are usually delivered through email or text message. It's really important to understand all of these distinctions as we get into the platform here in just a moment and see how all of these things interact together with the Yext Reviews product live. Now, I do want to mention briefly here on that last definition here, organic versus generated. Yext Reviews does have the capability to send generated review prompts through email and text. We won't be getting into that today, but it is important to note that Yext Reviews does have that capability. You can learn more about that on our help site or in a future training. All right, so let's move into a demo Yext build to see all of these elements of Yext Reviews in action. I'm going to jump over here to my handy dandy demo build. Just keep in mind as we move through today's demo that this is an internal org for demos like this one. So there might be some things that you see here that look a little bit different from what you might be used to seeing in your Yext platform. You might see some things that look a little bit messy or wonky, or maybe you think, okay, that's not how I would use Yext, but the basics of navigation and best practices are going to remain the same. So, Yext Reviews helps you collect all of the information from all of the reviews that your business receives so that you can improve your brand. It's designed to help brands manage, respond to, and analyze your customer feedback in one centralized platform. When you click Reviews in your left-hand navigational panel after signing in, the options that you see below the word Reviews are going to give you three core capabilities. The first one is Monitor, and this is accessible from the Monitoring tab specifically. The monitoring capability allows you to see reviews from across the web in one single dashboard. We'll get into this more in just a moment. You can also respond to your customer reviews. This is a place that you can utilize to quickly reply to customer feedback while maintaining consistency and tone across every single platform. And then finally, you can also extract insights. And there's a couple of different resources here for that. You have the insights, the sentiment analysis, and the overview that give you the capability to see things like identifying trends, spotting specific areas for improvement that can power better business decisions. You can see things like tracking how locations are performing. You can use filters and visual reports, etc. And we'll get into more of this later as well. Now, before we go any further, I just want to talk a little bit about licensing. Reviews is a Yext solution that requires specific license setup. There's two main options for this. The first is called Reviews Monitoring License, and that's going to include the monitoring, insights, Q&A, and user photos tabs. The second is called the Reviews Response License. It unlocks additional features like the generative AI response that we'll talk about when we talk about this response tab, and also sentiment analysis. So depending on how your licensing in Yext is set up, what you see might be a little bit different from what you're seeing here on my screen in my demo build. If you have questions about that, I recommend that you reach out to whoever is your system admin, whoever helps manage your business's Yext subscription, and ask them a little bit about your licensing and how you're going to be using Yext Reviews. So that being said, let's jump right into the monitoring tab. So for listings, whenever you have a publisher, like Yelp, Google, Facebook, etc., those are some examples of publishers. But whenever you have one that allows reviews, and then you have a synced connection between Yext and that publisher, Yext pulls reviews received on that publisher website here into the monitoring tab through the API. So basically what this means is this is one centralized place that you can see all of the reviews that your business receives across publishers. So the layout of the page is fairly straightforward. At the top, you have some filter options. If you click Add Filter, you can choose from a whole variety of different filters to show you exactly what you're looking for. Now, if you're looking for some specific filter criteria that isn't in this default list, you can always click on the Add Filter drop-down list, and there's additional options here. Always remember to apply the filter using this Apply Filter button in order to see those filters go into effect. Now, below your filtering options, you have hero numbers. These are these key numbers and metrics to give you some insight on how you're doing in reviews overall. Here you have the number of total reviews your business has, a breakdown of how recommended you are on Facebook, your average rating, where most of your reviews are coming from, and then your Google Business Profile stars. This is a great place to go if you just need a quick, at a glance view of how you're performing online. Then if you scroll down from here, you can see all of your reviews in one place. They're going to be listed by default in order of the most recent reviews first. So you can see here, the one that I have at the top was left for my business on 9/26 of this year at 4:48 a.m. Now, a quick note about this date and timestamp here. This is the date of the original review. If the customer who left this review were to come comment on the review, or if a member of my team were to respond to the review, this date and timestamp is not going to change. It's a static capture of the date and time that the original review was left by my customer. We also can see the site where this review was left. In this case, for this first review, it was Yelp. The star rating that the customer gave us, in this case, 1 out of 5 stars, not great. And if they left a review with actual commentary and not just the star ranking, then I would see that here. So here's Carol F. It looks like was the customer who left this review, and here's what she had to say about our business. In the response column, we'll see any response that I or someone on my team who responds to reviews has left. In this case, there is none, which leads me to believe we have not yet responded to Carol F's review. Then we have the entity. So every review in Yext is going to be connected to a specific entity. And you can pull that up here. I could open the entity directly by clicking on its name. Any labels applied to that review, as well as the status. Keep in mind that reviews generally can't be deleted unless they're violating the publisher site policies. One of the few ways that a review can be deleted is if the author deletes their own review. So in this case, if Carol F took her review down, it wouldn't automatically disappear from this page. It would show up with a status of removed. And then in that case, I could decide, or another member of my team, we could decide whether we wanted to keep this review on the dashboard or exclude it from the dashboard. So that's the general layout of this monitoring tab. Now, I do want to call your attention to the fact that I do have other publishers here. The first few were on Yelp, but if I were to scroll down on my dashboard here, I can see some from Better Business Bureau, Facebook. I might even find some from Google down the road later. And then I also want to call your attention to the fact that as I scroll down, the dates are getting further and further back. So this is one that was left back in May of this year. Okay, let's jump over to the response tab now. When I pull up my response tab, you might notice that the general layout of it is actually quite similar to the monitoring tab. You have the same filter option at the top, the same general type of default filters, then you have your additional filter list. We have some hero numbers up at the top, and then the same layout with each review having a date and timestamp, site, rating, review text, and so on. There is a key difference here between the monitoring and the response tab, and that is what you see on each of them. In the monitoring tab, you see all reviews, whether they've been addressed by someone on your team or not. In the response tab, you only see open items that still need attention. So, in short, if you wanted to see sort of a checklist of every review that you need to respond to today or tomorrow or in the next week, this would be a great place to come that gives you an idea of what you need to respond to, what your team needs to respond to in a timely manner. Whereas the monitoring tab, it's going to be more generalized. If you wanted to see only reviews that need a response in the monitoring tab, you'd actually have to use filters to see that. So like I mentioned earlier, just like the monitoring tab, you have the same filters up here at the top, the same general layout here. I do want to call your attention to a few things that are going to be different though. So on the response tab, you have the ability to assign a review response to a member of your team or to respond to it yourself. So to assign it, you would just click on the plus sign over here on the far right-hand side of the review. This will allow you to create a review response task. To do this, you're only required to select an assignee. You can add a comment for them if you want to. You don't have to. You can totally create that review response task without a comment. So what would happen at this point is if I went ahead and hit that create button, Carly would receive a notification to go ahead and get a response added for this review. In this case, it looks like it's Brenda's review. Now, notice the status here says response failed. I do have a response here. It looks like someone on my team drafted it, but for some reason it didn't go through. So the review is still showing up on my response tab because it doesn't have an actual response that was sent. It looks like it was an attempted send. So if I wanted to come in and respond to it, I would click the respond button. This shows me the actual review, any labels, which I can also add or remove labels here. And then down at the very bottom, I have my text box where I can type the response that I want to send to the customer. In this case, that would be Brenda. So here we get into the three different methods of responding to a review that I mentioned earlier. The first one is fairly straightforward. Basically, you just type out what you want to say in the text box. So I could say something like, "Hi, Brenda," extra comma there. "Thank you for your review." Now, this is pretty straightforward, but it is not the most time-effective way to respond to your reviews. If you are looking for something a little more fast and efficient, you can either use generative AI or you can use the template options that have been set up in advance for you. So I'm going to talk about the template options and then we'll talk about generative AI. Please note that the template responses, so they're indicated up here. You should have one for greeting, statement, sentiment, and closing if they've been set up. If they haven't, you can talk with your system admin about that and getting those enabled. But basically, they're just preset greetings, statements, sentiments, and closings that you can add to your reviews and they get customized or you can edit them as needed. So I'm going to go ahead and this was a positive review. It was a recommendation. She seemed pretty happy with our service, I think, if I remember correctly. Either way, I'm just going to show you what I have here. So I have several different sentiment options. So I could say we work hard to have the best work. And then if that was all I wanted to say, then I could just go ahead and close it out. Now, these template options for responding to reviews much more time efficient, but depending on how they're set up, they can sound a little more like a form letter, a little bit less authentic. So this is where that generative AI comes in. It's both time effective and has the personal touch of actually typing something out. So to utilize the generative AI feature, you just click on this icon in the lower left corner of your text box. And depending on what you have in the review text box, what you see here might change a little bit. So I already have some words here, so I have a list of different things that I can do with it. I could reword it, fix any spelling and grammar issues, increase or decrease, simplify, translate, change the tone. I'm actually going to go ahead and make it a little bit longer so that it doesn't feel quite so form lettery. And then if I was happy with that, I could go ahead and hit reply to send it. Now, let's say that I don't have anything here. I'm starting from scratch. In that case, when I click on the generative AI icon here, it gives me a prompt suggestion. I can use the prompt suggestion or I can type my own here. Just going to go ahead and use that prompt suggestion, and it's going to think for a second and then add a review response here in my text box. Now, just a quick note on this. The generative AI does need to be set up in order to run efficiently, and I'll walk you through that here in just a moment. So now we can see here that my generative AI review response has been added here in the text box. If I read through it and I'm happy with it, I can go ahead and hit reply. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of here and talk through the generative AI review response setup. So if you would like to set up generative AI responses, you just need to click on your little person icon. This is in the lower left-hand side of your navigation panel, and then click on Account Settings. This will take you to your account settings page, and you're going to scroll all the way to the bottom where you have Reviews section. And then depending on your licensure, again, you can always ask your system admin if you have questions about if this is accessible to you. But if you have generative AI, you should just be able to turn that on here. You can give it specific instructions, language indication. And then I always recommend that before you apply the changes, I always recommend that you play around with it here in the playground just to make sure that it's exactly how you want it to sound and how you want it to feel in response to your customers before you go live with it. All right, so let's jump back here to our reviews section. We're going to go ahead and take a look at some analysis tools now. So I do want to mention here, just high level, the overview tab has high level information about the overviews that you're receiving. And then the insights tab has additional information. Between the overview and insights tabs, you can see things like your overall average rating, the total number of reviews that you have received or your reviews volume, your response rate, which is the percentage of reviews that your team has responded to, your average response time, and then the site distribution where you're getting the most reviews. And we saw some of these as well in the monitoring tab, hero numbers. But what I want to focus on for the next little part of our training as we're here in our demo build is sentiment analysis. So essentially what sentiment analysis is it allows you to establish sentiment score around your business, services, and products that you are selling in a range from -100, which is very negative, to +100. So let's break this down a little more. Yext Sentiment Analysis uses natural language processing, or NLP. It's an AI resource to scan the text of each review that your business receives and pick out two very important things. The first one is keywords. So the keyword is usually the main topic of a review. That will be a thing like service, food, hotel, shop, usually nouns. And then the second of those two important things is the modifiers. Modifiers are typically going to be adjectives or adverbs, and they describe the key word. So they might be things like friendly, rude, helpful, cold. So let's think about an example before we take a closer look at this page. Let's say that I have a restaurant location and I receive a review that says the staff was friendly, but the food was cold. So here we have two keywords and two modifiers. The first part of that review, or the first phrase here, is the staff was friendly. The keyword there would be staff. The modifier is friendly. That's a positive sentiment. And then the food was cold. The key word here is food, and the modifier is cold. So essentially, this allows me to see, okay, so we have a positive customer sentiment about my service, my staff, and a negative sentiment about the food itself being cold. So basically, by combining keywords and modifiers, Yext provides you with a clear picture of what your customers are saying, what they might be complaining about, and how they're feeling about specific aspects of your business. This makes it easier for you to identify specific areas for improvement and then take the action needed to enhance your services. So now let's take a look at how this looks in the platform. So up at the top, we have a filter layout. It's a little bit different from what we saw on monitoring and response, but the basics are going to be the same. You can filter by specific entities, time frame, mention counts, keywords that you want to look for, and sites that your reviews are created on. You can also gauge up at the top. You can create what's called a sentiment collection. So this just allows you to keep a close eye on very specific things or keywords, I should say, that are being mentioned in your reviews. But when you scroll down, this is where the magic is happening. So here is where you get to see things, your sentiment by keyword specifically. And I want to just call your attention here to this little I button. This is called a tooltip. If you're ever going around in Yext in reviews or anywhere in Yext and you're not quite sure what something does and you see one of these little tooltips, click on it. It's not going to take you out of the page. It's just going to pull up a little box like this one to tell you what you're seeing and how you can understand what you're seeing as a whole. So here I have my keywords. Now, again, we might see some wonky things here with this being a demo build, but the basics are going to be the same. So let's use this keyword. For example, the keyword is refund. Here I can see the sentiment around that word, that keyword, and it's being ranked a -5. Now, remember that the ranking goes from -100, which is very negative sentiment, to +100. So I'd say that's not really a great sentiment to have about this word. This word refund has 2 mentions. I should say has mentions in 2 reviews, and it has an average rating between those reviews. It has an average rating of 1 star. And then here we have the top modifiers. So this tells me what modifiers is this word used most frequently with. And for this business, the most commonly associated modifier is full. So if I had to guess just by looking at this and putting the full picture together, I'm going to guess that the word refund is mentioned in reviews from unhappy customers who are saying that they're unhappy and that they want a full refund. So essentially, if I were to look at this, let's take a more executable example to talk more about how this could be used to improve my business. Let's say that I will go back to the restaurant example. Let's say I have a restaurant location and I'm in my sentiment analysis tool here in sentiment by keyword. And let's say instead of refund here, let's say I had the word menu since I'm a restaurant and the top modifier is limited. That would tell me that, and especially if we have a significant amount of mentions here, that would tell me that folks are probably saying that they were hoping to have a more diverse menu. So that could give me some very key action items that I could take to help those customers and others by diversifying my menu, making it a little bit bigger. Maybe I could start offering gluten-free or vegetarian options, etc. In a nutshell, this is going to be a key hub for finding and actionable feedback from customers that you can make changes with. So if you want to get additional information on any of these features and functionalities that we've talked about today, you can always learn more from the Yext Help Center. You can access the Yext Help Center in your platform by clicking on the little question mark icon. It's in the navigation panel. It's in the lower right corner of the navigation panel. And if you click on that, it will open a new tab with the Yext Help Center. And the URL for that is going to be help.yext.com. So this is a great place to search if you have a specific question, if there's something new you want to learn, if you want to reach out to a support member and talk a little bit about an issue you might be having, but overall a great place to get additional information about the things that you're doing in Yext. So now I'm going to go ahead and take us back to our deck to wrap us up here. Everything that we've talked about today, the bigger picture here is that Yext is designed to help every business and every location stay in control of the story that they and their customers are telling by becoming more customer-centric. And these are 3 key steps to doing that, and Yext Reviews offers great support in doing that. The first one is listening to customers. Reading reviews that they're submitting and focusing on keywords and messages using sentiment analysis allows you to listen to your customers and focus on the areas that need improvement. It's also important to engage with unhappy customers. As a best practice, we recommend that you interact with every single review that you receive. Everyone wants to feel heard and seen, even the unhappy customers, and even the customers that only leave star ratings, even if they just leave a 4 or 5 star rating or a 1 or 2 star rating and no text, everyone wants to be engaged with. You can use generative AI to respond to unhappy customer reviews and stay polite and professional doing so, and showing them that you care about their experiences and feedback. And then lastly, we briefly touched on this, but didn't go into it in detail. You can also proactively ask for customer feedback to help you understand what your customers need and want. These are 3 very important steps to becoming a more customer-centric brand. The high-level picture here, in a nutshell, is remember that with Yext Reviews, you have the resources that you need to turn visibility into action and action into business growth. So a couple of action items to take home today. First, I would love for all of you to be able to go into your Yext platform and, if possible, enable your generative AI response, add some prompts, use that playground to play around with it and get familiar with how it works. Second, build on that by picking out 3 negative reviews in your reviews response tab and try using that generative AI that you set up to respond to negative reviews. Remember, you can always go in and adjust the prompts if the first result isn't quite what you want. You can make it exactly what you need it to be. And then finally, use sentiment analysis to identify at least 3 keywords that show where there's room for improvement. Maybe today you might not necessarily be doing anything about it, but having a clear picture of how you can satisfy and help and support your customers is going to make a big difference in the way that they see you. These 3 small steps will help you start applying what we've covered today and start getting real value from Yext. So I want to open it up now for some Q&A. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We'd love to help answer any questions that you might have. And then I also, well, if you're adding any in there, I just want to mention here as well, if you need to reach out to a member of the support team, you can email help@yext.com, and they're a great resource to have in your pocket if you're having any technical issues or challenges in the platform. And Emma, if I could get you to add the registration link as well as that Yext support email address in the chat as well, that would be great. Thank you. Perfect. All right, I don't see any questions here in the chat. So I'm just going to pull up the Yext Help Center here. I just want to mention once again, this is a great resource, a great place to find additional learning resources, articles, and so on. You can find that at help.yext.com. And then as far as next steps and where we go from here, as I mentioned earlier, this is the 4th in a series of 5 webinars on the platform basics. The final webinar in this series is going to be hosted on October 14th. It will be about Yext Analytics. We're going to be building on the foundational knowledge that we've gained from all of the sessions so far, including this one, and you'll be learning more about how you can leverage your data in the Yext platform to gain important insights on your digital presence and then share those insights with others on your team. And then just a quick note as well, as we approach the holiday season, we'll be hosting additional webinars to help you optimize your digital presence as during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and then the upcoming holidays as well. If you're interested, stay tuned. More information to come on our website, yext.com, about that. All right. Once we close out of this meeting, just a heads up, you will get an invitation to participate in a Zoom survey. We would love to hear your feedback on this session and anything that we can do to improve or offer the content that you're needing. So please take a few seconds and fill that out. All right. Perfect. Okay, that's all we have today. I don't see any questions, so I will go ahead and wrap us up here. Thanks everyone for joining.